Thing I wanted to talk to you guys about when we're dealing with the tape measures. Okay, I know this is I talked at the beginning of the year where we just got our tape measures, and one of them is already busted. Okay, so just take care of them. Wait. You don't need to be playing with them to see how far they go. Okay, so they have an 8-foot extension, so you don't need to test it out. You don't need to be poking anybody. Okay, so just use them for measuring, all right? They can be bent, but in this class, you don't really need to be bending them. So the more you go like this, what it does is it creates a weak point, and especially people tend to do that with the first, foot or two. So that gets a weak point, and eventually it'll end up breaking. Okay, so we already got one that's busted. So just like I said, make sure that you only use them for measuring. You don't have to poke each other or for seeing how far it'll stick out or anything like that. Okay. What I want to make sure you guys are doing is, well, first off, what was today's question? Okay, so what machine do we use to make the rabbets on our legs for? What machine do we use? Chop saw. Table saw, right? So if you guys would have watched that video, you would have seen that we had the Dado table saw used. So, guys, make sure you guys are watching those videos, because again, that's why they're out there, so I don't have to go ahead and demonstrate and take away from shop time. Make sure that you guys are using your books too. Okay, so again, you have for your parts, you have your grading rubric for what is actually going to be graded on. Then also your material processing sheet, so that, again, in case I'm busy and you want to know what the next step is. Okay, so kind of follow along with that. Oh, this is our. So we have our QR codes for what videos you're watching, your grading rubric, then you have your legs here. Again, so just double check to make sure that you have your final dimensions, so final width and final length, because again, there's been some adjustments to the overall size of the project. The steps haven't changed, but just the sizes are. So just double check with the actual multi-view for your process sheet. Okay, so you know what your final dimensions are. When you guys are dealing with, kind of go back with the difference between rough cut and then final cut. Okay, so if our leg here, I gave the example, I think with Randy yesterday, is that, all right, so we figured out our rough dimensions, right, for width, length, and thickness, and that's to deal with warp. Okay, after we've dealt with, for how much material we need, that's really all that we need the rough dimensions for, and they're just, they're just there to make sure that we have enough material, right? So if I need to have a finished board that's 4.5 inches, and this board is only 4 inches wide, can I get a board 4.5 inches out of this one? No, right? Because we don't have a board structure. There's no such thing as a board structure. Once you've cut it to that length, that's as wide as it'll ever be. I mean, there's some movement because they expand contraction of the seasons, but basically, if you cut it at 4 inches, you're not going to be able to make it 4 1/16, right? By the size you glue. All right. So what I wanted to make a point of that was, if I had a board, what is our final width of our legs?
3 points.
Final.
2.6.
2 so 2 5/8. So our final width is 2 5/8, and our rough width is 3.125. So 3 1/8. So rough width is 3 1/8. Final width is 2 5/8. So if this board, say, is 3.5 inches, I don't need to take it on the table saw, cut it to 3 1/8, and then cut it again to 2 5/8, right? Because what's really going to end up, what's really happening if I cut it to 3 1/8, and then I move the fence over to 2 5/8 and cut it again?
Just take more work.
Yeah, it's just an extra step. Are you going to get downgraded for taking 2 cuts? No, it's just a time thing, right? So set it up to 2 5/8, whatever your fence is. Make sure that your jointed edge is against the fence, and then send all of them through at once. All right, so some of you guys, again, the goal is to try and have your rabbets cut along your edge here, or your legs mitered to finish length. Okay, so tomorrow we'll talk about cutting them to finish length. Today we'll talk basically about how you can miter those on that video. Like I said, make sure you guys are watching it. How would I go about making this if I didn't have a table saw? Or how did they used to do it?
Hands.
Hand, right? So they do it all by hand. So if I had my hand, my chisels over here, so if I wanted to make a groove in here, what I would do is I'd actually take a chisel, section it off, basically keep the wood from splitting, and then I would take a smaller chisel and I'd chisel with the grain and pop those out, okay? A lot of time, right? A lot of time. It's a skill that needs to be practiced. When right now I can just set up a machine and cut them all and they're all going to be the same. So with hand, I have to make sure that I'm always the same depth, everything like that, width, of my groove. Okay? So what I wanted to show you guys is a couple different ways that you can use for the table saw, or the blades on it. You have over here a stacked blade. So this is one that we actually have out in the shop. There we go. Okay. All right. Lights. Yeah. All right. So I want to show you. There's a couple different ways for a table saw. Okay. So for cutting your rabbets, it's the same safety procedures as an actual table saw. The only thing that's different is the blade itself. Here, what this one is, it's a Dado blade, and what it does is it actually off centers in a dial or a wobble. So what it does, it's only one blade, and you dial it into the thickness. But when it starts up, it basically wobbles back and forth. So if you wanted a groove or a rabbet that was, say, an inch wide, you would dial it to that inch, and the overall width itself would wobble back from edge to edge, would wobble back and forth about an inch. I don't particularly care for them just because you have something that's spinning at such a high RPM, wobbling back and forth. Okay? So that's out there. What we have here is a stacked Dado blade. You can kind of see here what they do is they have the two outside blades, and then they have, like I said, the star right here, and that basically it's stacked out to give you whatever width you need. So if you needed, 3/8 of an inch, you have your blades on each side, one in the middle, and then for every 1/8 of an inch that you need to go wider, you would just add in more of these star bits or in between the body right here. Okay. What do you think one downside of this is? Okay. Not move slower. So it goes at the same RPM.
Might not get as good of a cut.
Okay, I want to get why?
Just like that, it only has 4 teeth.
It only has 4 teeth, but also if you look at each blade itself, if the different teeth on the blade right here are at different heights, you'll actually make sure that you have a chance of getting different steps. So like on this groove here we talked about, instead of having a chisel with one clean blade going all the way through, if I had a wide groove in here, I'd end up notching it out. Okay, so I might not get as clean of a cut. That's why when you take these in to get them sharpened, you want to sharpen all of them at the same time. So one thing that they go through now, and I just want to show, is a CNC router. Okay, and what that is basically just a machine with a router bit, and you can go through and you program it, and you're able to get what's one of the benefits of this rather than what's that? Yeah, it's accurate. I can do curve cuts on here, right? And I can do the same thing multiple times with the same precision, right? So if I have this curve on this board, I can run 100 of them, and they're all going to be that same dimension. Okay? So it's basically, this is where, again, where the money is the programming of the CNC and setting it up. Okay? So no lot, people, what we're doing like out here in the shop, there's no one who can run a decent business, I should say, or very, very few people that can actually run a business and do it all by hand. Okay? So it's a small market to do everything by hand, create one piece at a time. Even if you look at like the Amish, they all have their setups. If you look at the pieces of their projects or any materials or any projects that they make, they have like a drawer front, and that drawer will be used, say, on a cabinet, on a bookshelf, or wherever those drawers are going to be used. So they'll have a set number of drawers, and that way they just mass produce them. Okay? So that's it's all about trying to set up, getting as many as you can out in the shortest amount of time as possible, while also being the same. All right, the main points that I wanted you guys to know from that video. Okay, from the YouTube video. All right, well, I don't have this up. But make sure you guys are watching that, is to make sure that you have your inside face facing the table, your top edge facing the edge, and you're going to be graded on how smooth of a cut you're actually going to be getting. So that's why so you need to run it through a couple of times in order to make sure it doesn't lift up off the blade. Okay, so that's one thing you have to check. If you have questions, let me know. Any other questions? All right, go ahead.